Hey y'all, welcome to day number 9 of Vlogmas. I'm actually looking at a calendar to make sure that I'm on the right day, but this is day number 9 of Vlogmas. We are slowly but surely making our way through, y'all. Slowly but surely we're doing it. So as you can see by the title of this video, we're going to be talking about some books that I want to reread in 2021. And the reason why I came up with this theme as I pull up my handy dandy book is because of the holiday song, I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. I was thinking about the fact that, okay, Christmas every day means repeating something. So definitely repeating in terms of books would be rereading. So yeah, I think it works for this song. Some of these I feel like I'm stretching a little bit, but I think it definitely works for this song. So as with all the other videos, let's go ahead and dive into some fun facts about the song. So as I said, this song is I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. It was written and sung by the British group, glam rock group Wizard. It came out in 1973, so if you like that era of British rock, this song is for you. It was a super popular song, but it was never able to reach higher than 4 on the UK charts, which is super unfortunate. I actually really enjoy the song. And it features a school choir, and the music video is very interesting, so I will leave that link down below if you are interested in checking that out. So I have quite a few books on this list to get through, so we're just going to go ahead and jump in. We're not going to do it in any specific order or by age categorization or genre or anything like that. If you know me, if you've been following this channel for a while, then you should know that I am an avid fan of rereading books. I love being immersed in worlds. Sometimes books don't necessarily hold up when you reread them, especially after a certain period of time, but you love them for a reason, and rereading just brings you back to that world again. So let's go ahead and jump into the books. So the first one that I have on here is one that I actually have already talked about in another video, and that's One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia. I want to reread this one specifically because of the fact that I need to finish out the series, and I don't remember the exact specific details of this book. It does focus on 3 girls who go to Oakland, California to kind of build a relationship with their absent mother over the summer, and they find out that their mother is part of the Black Panther Party, and she has them get involved in some ways, and it's just that exploration. Very highly awarded and regarded book, so I need to finish the series because I do know that I absolutely loved this one. The next one that I have here is The War That Saved My Life by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley, and this one is about a young girl by the name of Ada who's been kept confined to her house by her mother because of her twisted foot, and her mother is ashamed of her. So when the war happens, I can't remember whether this is World War I or World War II, she sneaks out with her brother who's getting shipped to the countryside. If you didn't know, during the war they would ship the kids out of the urban areas in the cities and send them to the countryside. They're less likely to be victims of bombings and stuff when they're in the countryside. But anyway, Ada and her brother end up under the care of a woman named Susan, and Susan is not really used to taking care of anybody but herself, but she ends up adoring and loving the kids. Ada begins to find comfort in herself. She learns how to ride a horse. She learns how to read and write. She looks out for German spies. She falls in love with Ada, and it explores just so much about identity and self-love, and how family doesn't always necessarily have to be through blood relation. One of the best historical middle grade fiction books that I have read. I did not read the second book, The War I Finally Won. I do have a copy on my shelf, but I want to reread this one, that way I can jump into the second one. What would this list be without Legendborn? I know this book just came out. I know it just came out, but it was just that daggone good. It was so good. I loved Legendborn. Legendborn for me was the best debut YA fantasy of 2020, and it is the it's more than just a retelling of King Arthur. It focuses on a girl named Britty who goes to this early college program at UNC Chapel Hill, and right off the bat she is put into the situation with some monsters, and she finds out they're actually a secret society that may or may not be tied to King Arthur. It explores everything from Bree having to deal with the process of grieving. It explores what it's like to be Black in predominantly white spaces. It looks at the history of the schools. It looks at the relationship that the Black community has with mental health. There are so many different characters, just great characters. Oh my gosh, this book is just so good. I love this book. I have to reread it. I was going to read it in December this month, but I don't think I'm going to have time to reread it. But trust me, this is going to happen. I don't know if the next book is slated to come out next year or in 2022, but I need it now. And I probably will reread it a second time before the second book comes out, because this book is it. If you have not read Legendborn, you're missing out. Next, I have Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. I read this one in 2019 when it was released. This is another good YA fantasy book, and the second one comes out in February, which I'm so excited that Rena actually was able to get me an arc of the second one. So I'm going to be rereading this one very soon, actually, to prepare for the second book. And this focuses on our main character by the name of Ara, and she is supposed to have these magical abilities, and she just doesn't. It's just not happening at all. And what ends up happening is that she could sell her years to the charlatans in order to get magic, but the catch to that is that when you sell your years, you really don't know how much you're selling. And then there's kind of like this second part of the book that looks at this force of the Demon King. So there's gods involved in this, and the Demon King is stirring, and he possibly is going to ruin a lot of things for our people. But then there's some dark, sinister stuff going on with family, and it's crazy. And the way that this book ended, I was like, bro, what? It was so crazy. It was the craziest book ever. I did think that it was a little too info dumpy in some parts, and some parts were slow, but the overall purpose of this book is so crazy. And I wish people would stop comparing it to Children of Blood and Bone, because it's nothing like that. This novel stands on its own. It can definitely stand on its own, but my God. It is so good, and I cannot wait to reread this one. And I can't wait to reread a lot of the books that I have annotated, so to see my thoughts when I first read it, and then to go back and read it again and even make some additional annotations on top of the ones that I've already made. I have Raybearer by Jordan E. Fueco. This is also another great YA debut fantasy of 2020. This is about Terasai, who has been raised by this mysterious person that is supposed to be her mother, that's just called the Lady, and she is supposed to infiltrate the prince's tight-knit circle of people, and she's supposed to kill him. And it is so much more than that. Oh my gosh, this was a good book. I think most people who have read Raybearer have really enjoyed it. I think that the magic system in this was chef's kiss. Really great magic system, and I love the fact that I did not really see where the book was going in certain parts. I was like, okay, I would think it was one thing and then realize maybe it's not what I thought it was. But I did definitely enjoy this one, and I can't wait to reread it, because like the other books, I kind of need the second book in my hands now, but I don't have it, so I need to reread it just to satisfy my thirst. And y'all, if I've done any standalone reviews of these on my channel, I'll make sure that I link them in the card symbol above or in the description box. The next one that I have is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read this one earlier and did a full review on this one. It is about a girl by the name of Enchanted who is aspiring to be a singer, and she gets this opportunity with this artist, big R&B artist by the name of Corey. This is not necessarily a retelling of the situations that have happened with R. Kelly, but you can tell how it has basically influenced a lot of parts of this book. And this is definitely more of a discussion about how Black women and girls are treated, especially when it comes down to traumatic situations, and how police are less likely to believe them, which I think is a very, very important conversation to have. My intention was to reread this when it came out in September, but I did not get the chance to do so. So I'm looking forward to rereading it again, because I just need to reread it. I really do need to reread it because it just was that good and I devoured it so quickly, and I want to go back through and annotate it and really soak in every single part of this book. Next, I have Slay by Brittany Morris. I have not read this one in a while. I think I read this one last year when it came out as well, and Brittany Morris has a new book coming out in 2021, which you will see in a video that is coming out tomorrow. But this one was so important to me because I saw myself so clearly in this book. A lot of microaggressions and issues that I've had growing up as a Black woman, I saw in this book, especially a Black woman that's had to navigate white spaces. And if you just haven't read Slay, y'all, I've talked about this book before in one of the videos. Just pick up Slay, but I need to reread it, and once again, rereading it with my annotations is going to be very interesting. After that, I have Copper Sun by Sharon Draper. It has been a very, very long time since I've read Copper Sun, and I'm very, very foggy about what happens in this book. It does follow a girl by the name of Amari who is taken from her country, brought to America. It very much so is a slave narrative, but she meets with an indentured servant and they make a run for it to freedom, and it chronicles their journey. This book is one of those books where it has potential to get dark, but Sharon Draper stops it right before it gets too dark. So a lot of what we see in this book in terms of traumatic situations is very much so just insinuated and not directly on page. It's a lot of fade to black, but I would keep in mind that this is a slave narrative if you decide to pick up this book. But I love it. I love Sharon Draper. I don't think she gets talked about enough, or I don't think she gets talked about at all in this community, but I need to reread it and pick up her other stuff. But before I pick up her other stuff, I do want to revisit this work of historical fiction because there are some parts of it that deal with an actual free community that was developed in Florida. Next, I have The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I cannot say anything about it because it directly ties to Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I need to finish the last two books in Percy Jackson and the Olympians this month so I can start on the Heroes of Olympus. These are going to be a task for me to complete in 2021 because they are thick. Yes, they are middle grade, but see, here's the thing. I feel like Percy Jackson and the Olympians is definitely more middle grade, and this is kind of upper middle grade, lower YA because of content, length, center structure, all of that stuff. These books are definitely more complex, cover more intricate themes, but I'm excited to read it. I wish I could tell you more, but unfortunately I can't. Another book that I would love to reread that I don't have a copy of is Heroin by Mindy McGinnis. This is a book that follows a main character that hurts herself in a softball. No, she gets into a car accident. I was supposed to say softball incident. No, she plays softball. She gets into a car accident and she injures her leg, and then she's prescribed Oxycontin to help her make it through her recovery process. And of course you can probably figure out what happens after that, and you can tell by the cover that this is going from like heroin as like the heroine of the story to heroin the drug. This book is super dark, y'all. It was one of my favorites of 2019. Be very mindful if you decide to pick up this book. It is a very intricate portrayal of the opioid crisis that is currently happening in the United States. It is so hard to read, but such an intense portrayal of how it has even affected our teen population and not just older people. And you literally see the main character hit rock bottom. I mean, she literally cannot get any lower than she gets. But I want to get a physical copy of this one and reread it and annotate it because I believe I read this one in like a sitting and a half. I devoured it, and it had me feeling some type of way. Next on this list, I have A Quarter Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. I'm gonna try it, y'all. I'm gonna go for it. I have already read this book. I gave it 4 stars when I read it. I read part way through A Quarter Mist and Fury, but I want to reread A Quarter Thorns and Roses so I can remember exactly what happens, especially because Sarah J Maas's new book is coming out next year. This has been rebranded and remarketed as an adult series because of the content. The 4th book is supposed to be even more intense in terms of adult content. I am not going to even go into what this book is about. I think everyone in the book community has read this book or has said that they're not going to read this book, has their feelings about Sarah J Maas, but it's time for me to reread it and make my way through the series because A, if I like it, I keep it. B, if I don't and I feel like it's not for me, I need to unhaul. Like, next year is going to be the year of me really getting down to whether I need to keep this stuff or it needs to go somewhere else because space wise I can't keep it all. Next I have The Diviners by Libba Bray. The King of Crows, which is the 4th book, which I talked about in my bookish wish list, is the book that came out this year, which is the 4th and final book in the series. I have not read anything from the series in a very, very long time. I remember bits and pieces here and there, but it's been so long because she took so much time in between each book that I just don't remember. So I want to do a good reread. These are books that I'm really going to have to invest my time in, but they're well written paranormal historical fiction books where we have characters that have magical abilities. It starts off with just a focus on our main character Evie, who has the ability to touch objects and kind of read their history, and something happens in her hometown of Ohio and she gets sent to New York and it ends up being crazy. She's not the most likable character at first, but eventually, you know, you kind of get there. But like I said, these are thick and I actually want to annotate my copies now. I may do a blended read of these where I listen to the audio and read them physically at the same time. Next I have Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the first era of Mistborn, which I have read, but it's been 4 years since I've read this book. It will be 5 once I probably get the chance to reread this book. I really enjoyed it. It's super fast, but I finally want to start exploring more of the Cosmere universe, and this is the place to start, and I haven't gotten past this book. And hopefully I do make it and get it past this book so I can definitely start exploring the Cosmere more. Rhythm of War just came out this year, one of the biggest releases probably of 2020 in terms of SFF, and I need to reread it, y'all. The magic system in this is really cool. I know that it heavily explores metals. I remember that much, and it deals with a character by the name of Vin and how there's I believe an evil emperor trying to take over the world, and she has to help stop it from happening. And the last book that I have on this list is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. So I'm not going to be rereading City of Bones because I just reread it last year. I really do have a clear-cut idea of what has happened in this book, but I want to continue my reread of the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices. So remember that I have read in total of the Mortal Instruments world universe, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 books. So I have 4 more that I need to reread before I can continue on to books that I have not read. I own a good bit of them on my shelf across the room, and it needs to happen. I think when I first read this book, the first time I ever read it, I gave it 4 stars, and upon my reread I gave it 3. So I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen when I reread the next set of books, because there's one book in the second trilogy of the Mortal Instruments that I gave 2 stars to, which I think was City of Fallen Angels. I gave 2 stars because I just did not like it. So I'm guessing on my reread it's going to either stay the same or drop lower. And the last things that I have on my list are all going to be either manga or comics. It's only 3 of them, because I'm just not going to include everything that I want to reread in terms of comics and manga. That would just be ridiculous. So the first thing that I have, I'm actually taking it out of its slipcase, is the all-in-one Death Note, and I'm excited to read this because, listen, Death Note is a classic manga. A lot of people feel like this is a great place to start if you're interested in getting into manga. I just want to show y'all that this book has Bible thin pages, okay? It is over 1,000 pages, and it is the entire story of Death Note just in one. I'm excited to read this. I've read up to volume 4, I believe, in the single volumes of Death Note. It is about a boy who ends up getting the notebook of the death god, and he can write the names of anyone in that book and they die of a heart attack, and what starts off as him kind of being a vigilante and taking care of the city's worst individuals, he gets out of control, and it's this battle between him and this man who works for the police force, and it's a very much so, I think, a psychological thing that goes on, but I'm gonna love it because I did enjoy the first 4 volumes, and I'm so excited to have this. So thank you so much to Terrell, who actually did gift this to me. I'm excited. And the last one that I have on this list is Giant Days by John Allison, and I want to reread this series because it is finally coming to an end. I believe I've only read up to volume, oh gosh, maybe like 5, 6, or 7. I can't even remember, but it is stopping, I believe, at volume 14. So I need to reread the ones that I have read because I can't remember the story exactly. It's been a very, very long time since I've read the comics, but they're absolutely amazing. It follows 3 friends as they go through uni, and it's very much so slice of life, so I wouldn't go into this expecting much plot. It really is just following them day-to-day craziness, their ups and their downs, and their, you know, best moments, worst moments. But it is one that I have enjoyed. I've really enjoyed the artwork, and thank goodness I can get all of these through Libby, or not Libby, through Hoopla, through my library, so I don't have to worry about acquiring copies of these, because there's no way I would be able to buy 14 volumes of this. Right, y'all, so those are some books and comics and manga that I plan on rereading in 2021. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. If you are interested in supporting my channel, the links will be down below. If you're interested in following me on social media, all those links will be down below as well, and I will be back with another video soon.